Okay, in addition with the fun ArcCosine function, we know that we have f of x equals cosine x. And if we go back to our fun unit circle, remember that cosine is the x value, so we're looking at 1, 0, -1, and it's off the page. 0 again. So if we graph that, we got 0, 1, then we've got pi over 2, 0, pi -1, 0 in here. So we've got our nice, beautiful curve. All right? And we know that a function passes the vertical line test. And oh, look, it does, because we know that f of x of cosine x is a function. But the question we have now is the inverse a function? And we know that if the inverse is a function, it has to pass the horizontal line test. And look at that. It does not, because if I draw a line through the curve, it crosses here and here. So therefore, that indicates that the inverse of cosine is not a function. But in the fun, cool mathematical world, we can get a little crafty and creative, and we can actually restrict the domain and create it the inverse as a function. So what we do, we know that the inverse takes it and pretty much, oops, wrong part. We take the original function and we know that we have to flip it, but that's not the part I want either. Okay, so we know that when we do the inverse of function, really the graph is going to flip, and that's why the function is going to be up and down. But the cool thing is when you do the inverse of cosine is you're actually only going to take a portion of the curve. So if you only take a portion of the curve, you're really only looking at part of the whole cycle, which means you're only going to be looking at part of the unit circle. So let's keep that in mind. We're looking at part of the unit circle. And so on the next page, we got a bunch of math jargon. All right, basically, here's our beautiful cosine wave. Notice how they did from 1 to pi. All right. So because what they did is they're only looking at the first part of the cycle. So math jargon, all this fun stuff, but what you really need to know is this right here. This is going to be the part that's going to make the most sense to you, and that's going to help you derive the answers you need to derive. Basically, the domain of the inverse of cosine is on the interval -1 and 1, and its range is 0 to pi, which means if we throw up a fun unit circle, okay, and we're looking at just from 0 to pi, that means we're looking at quadrants 1 and 2. So that means you will have no real answers in any of this down here. So anything we're looking for the ArcCosine is going to be, again, from 0 to pi. So just remember the ArcCosine only has a range of 0 to pi. And that will help you when you do trigonometric equations. So real quick, we've got a few examples. Here we go. We've got the inverse of cosine at 1/2. Again, let's look at our unit circle, because that is what we look at for everything. If I want the rating degree of when cosine is 1/2, remember, I'm not looking at any of this because I'm ArcCosine. So I'm looking for when cosine is 1/2, which means not there, not there. It's there, here. Nope, that's negative. Nope, nope, nope. So basically, the inverse, the ArcCosine of 1/2 is going to be pi over 3. Now, for the next one, I'm looking at ArcCosine of 0. So that's when I want cosine to be 0. So that's 1. No, no, no. Oh, cosine 0 right there. And it's not there. So the inverse of cosine is, oh, not 0, but the inverse of cosine at 0 is going to be pi over 2. All right. Have any questions? Ask me in class.